All right, so for my project, I decided to talk about what will the future be like with cybernetics. So, upgrades. All my topics for this presentation have to do with cybernetics and the applications of a world with cybernetics. This includes, potential outcomes, dangers of the future with cybernetics, and some of the benefits. I think that we are already post-human. Previous, people from 1,000 years ago would think that we're gods, and I think that we as people in our society are definitely addicted to technology in more than one way. And with this addiction to technology, and especially in the context of cybernetics, the price is not only money, but the price is also going to be freedom. I'm going to talk a lot about the applications of paying freedom for your upgrades. Also in this, I'm going to talk a lot of examples that are from movies, games, TV shows, things like that, because there's not really that many real life examples of cybernetics currently. 20, 30, 40 years from now, I'm sure there will be. But one thing that I will, one, topic I'll touch on a lot is Neuralink, Elon Musk's Neuralink, because that is the one real application of cybernetics where he has a lot of ambition and has been made a lot of progress in enhancing our brain with cybernetics. Okay, so more machine than man. In this section, I'm going to talk about society viewing robots as human, which we don't. I wouldn't say that Siri is more of a person than you or I. We're also going to talk about how when we as people don't view others as human, it is very easy to do grotesque actions against them and justify it in our own head. If anybody can be a teacher of that, believe it or not, it would be the Nazis. And then also I'm going to touch on with cybernetics, people will undoubtedly become weaponized in one way or another. So what are the implications of that? Will we see the cost of life go down a lot in that a crime where somebody's murdered isn't, is a daily occurrence, or it's life is not worth a lot to many people. So we do not view technology now as even semi-human cyborgs or people, even the piece of AI. Look at this picture over here. Would you consider this robot a person that's the same, man sitting next to it? No. So in our quote here, the author is talking about enhanced persons gaining more privileges. I think that as they also do gain more privileges and abilities, both parties will initially it will be the people with the cybernetics lose a little bit of humanity, and then eventually it has become more socially acceptable to have become like a cyborg. They'll probably just become the norm. So I want to talk the implications of that, because that's what we're going to see first. We're going to see people get cybernetics first, and then see them less as human, more cyborg. So that's what the second bullet point is going to address. So becoming one with technology will make us superior in many ways, as you can think. If I have, a robotic arm, I'm going to be able to lift a car over my head, or hydraulic joints. I could be able to hit as hard as a gorilla. But with that, we will definitely become less human. We will lose something that makes us definitely completely human. And even just that mental step of seeing somebody like that will also make you think, are they, they're not like me. They're definitely not fully human. I think that maybe in like 40 or 50 years, it might be socially acceptable to have cybernetics, and that you will become a second class citizen like in medieval England, not being a gentleman makes you like a serf or a second class citizen. But initially, I think it's just going to be like a cool thing. So now we're going to move on to more of the how we're going to treat each other, because we are going to become these different beings becoming one with technology. Um, you can look throughout all of history and you'll see the common trend of the most horrible, disgusting, heinous acts done to people, genocide and murder, have come from viewing people as not human, one group or another. Here I'm going to hit on Nazis, but you can also think of North Korea. They don't even view some of their own people as human. And the rape of Nanking when Japan invaded China, they didn't regard those Chinese people as human, so they did unspeakable acts. So right here again with the quote, we're seeing that they talk about dehumanizing people because of combining with technology. And inadvertently, we are going, when you do get that robot arm, when you do get that chip in your head, when you do get that robotic tendons, you will become less human. And the author talks about, like, what is the cost of that? And I would say that initially we might see people that get the first cybernetics as like quasi-human, and definitely they might have a stigma to them of being like a freak or something. We could also see that these people might become indentured servants, and it's not just one sect of people. You could sign up. Maybe there's a multimillionaire who needs a servant, and he'll sign you up for 5 years. He'll give you a ton of implants, but you got to work for him for 5 to 10 years, and you're not. It's not going to be easy. Easy job. It's going to be rigorous grunt work, just like how we've seen with indentured servants in the past. So this could very well be the future of people, making them into quasi-human cyborg, and that stigma that comes with it, and just using them as you would use a cup, with no respect to them. Now, in the context of weaponizing people and war, we could see the same thing happen where the government will give you a ton of cybernetics and you go fight in this war, and then they don't view you as a casualty or a person. They think, oh, we just lost some parts. So there's a dehumanizing factor there where war becomes not so much a diplomatic problem, but just a cost problem. Whoever has more money to rip out all these to give all these implants out and then just win the war with pure just money and implants. We will also see, like, with Neuralink, it's a real thing. So with the chip, could it also, which I think it will, in the future be able to eliminate emotions of pain, fear, or doubt or anything like that? So these soldiers might be flip a switch and they become a killing machine. So what are the implications of that? We're giving a lot of control to the government on that. And these people, what if the chip malfunctions and they're in a public setting? These are a lot of implications that we have to think of, which is an inevitability because cybernetics are very real. So now, under the microscope, Big Brother is watching you, and it's not just Zuckerberg, it's our own government. So in this section, I'm going to talk about, and actually right here, that's what Neuralink looks like now. It reminds me of like a cell phone from the 70s or 80s, like that big brick cell phone. In the future, this chip might be a millimeter thick, and you don't even notice it on somebody's head. So in this section, we're going to cover the rise of innovations like Neuralink and the realization that chips in our brain will be a reality, but also who owns this chip. At the end of the day, Neuralink is a corporation. And what are the implications of a corporation owning a big part of your freedom and free will? And also, these cybernetics and enhancements are made by man, which is inherently flawed. So, what is that? What is their angle on this? There is definitely a big bid for power and wealth to be made in this industry. Do we really want to give these corporations and governments just about all of our freedom, the keys to the castle here? So with cybernetics, Neuralink, let's say Neuralink, one of their ambitions is in the future is to give people who are paraplegics the ability to walk again. Now, a corporation has the ability to control whether you walk or not. So what if you don't, you lease your chip and you don't own it, and you miss a payment or something comes up and now you can't walk? Do you really want a corporation to have that much power over you? Now, not only that, but as we see here in a Panopticon, it talks about social conditioning through technology and the lack of privacy. The lack of privacy, everybody seeing you do something will give you that social pressure to mold you into doing a certain act a certain way, behave a certain way, talk a certain way. And it also talks about the enforcement wing of the government being police. What if, police don't have the same access to cybernetics? They could easily, beat somebody to death. They have a big enforcement wing for whatever the government pushes. Will the government take that cybernetics, harbor them for themselves, and allow nobody else to get them, and then only their people have it, and we're under tyranny through a government? So that's something to think about. Corporations and governments having a ton of control and power over our personal lives and our privacy. But if you have enhanced eyeballs, they can hack and they can see right through your eyeballs. The NSA could see me and you right now through our camera on our computer. What makes that any different? And like I said, panopticism, it's the whole loss of privacy for prisoners, which is conditioning them, and they're trying. This is an application where we're not prisoners, but we're getting conditioned to act a certain way. So these are some thoughts to keep in mind of the cost of these cool cybernetics, because I think it's very easy to sell you on cybernetics, but it's not as easy to sell you on some like the hard truths of a world with cybernetics. So more on this, we see even now, this is not just thoughts, this is based on the past and the present. So even now we see that big tech owns a lot of our data. In one of the sources in the end of the presentation, it goes through a list of like 50 or 90 different things Facebook knows about you based on data from you going onto their website and you going to other websites, what food you enjoy, your ethnicity, where you're from, who you live with, how old you are, height and weight. Even when you go into the bathroom, a lot of really crazy stuff they can do with algorithms to figure out where you are, what you're doing, and what are your intentions. So with like Neuralink, what is the drawbacks of this? They will undoubtedly become very profitable if they can sell a lot of people on the medical application of their product. But with that, it will have an immense amount of control. So now the quote here talks about worshiping machines as if it was God, and understanding that these machines are made by men, and man himself has his own self-interest. And like I keep bringing up the corporations and government, a corporation is sociopathic. At the end of the day, all they care about is profits. They don't care who they have to crush to get to it. So they're incentivized to make technology very addictive and very entertaining and keep you using technology. That's their whole business model. So we have to keep in mind is that with this new technology, there's always unintended consequences with more people getting their hands on it. Now, one thing I just want to add here is that when we become part of technology and get cybernetics, like I said before, we're paying with freedom. A lot of this technology is very invasive and even physically invasive. Like, look at this picture. This is a mechanical arm on the inside, and look how invasive that is. A neural link chip in your head is very invasive. And what will these corporations have access to in your mind? Will be able to read thoughts, will they see what you're doing through your eyeballs? So this is a lot of super surveillance on consumers, the everyday person. So this is something to keep in mind with the drawbacks and the applications of cybernetics in the future. Now we're going to talk about golden handcuffs. In today's modern age, I would compare it to credit card debt for like the middle class. Just pay off the interest and you can keep buying nice stuff and go on vacations, things like that. But eventually, even for like a teen, technology, social media, you got to keep using it. It's nice to have a nice new phone, but you're always going to be using social media and things like that, entertainment. So in this section, we're going to talk about people's inclination to fill emotional gaps with technology and even performance gaps with technology. And we're also going to talk about how the rise of cybernetics will inevitably become, because we have previous examples of technology, mainly the cell phone, which I will get into in the second part. And eventually it's going to be like, today you might think to yourself, how could I ever function without my cell phone? 40 years from now, you might think, how could I ever function without my neural link chip? So even today, you could look around, you see so many people rely on technology. One example that came to mind was schools, elementary schools getting rid of analog clocks for digital ones because the kids couldn't read analog clocks. And the addiction to social media, which is a really big one because that addiction can result in depression, anxiety, stress, and sometimes in younger people, suicide. I would argue that as the quote's talking about, he is talking about the hunter-gatherer, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, but I would say even 1,000 years ago, sorry about that. Like I was saying, in the quote, it says in a hunter-gatherer context, we may already appear as post-human. But I would even argue 1,000 years ago, people, if I showed somebody 1,000 years ago a cell phone or a plow or a gun or a TV, they'd probably lose their mind of how advanced we are. They'd think that we're gods. So also thinking back to the past, I would say even in the 90s, I'm forgetting where I read it, but it was an old article and it was saying along the lines of, with the VCR and all the technology of the 90s, all a man needs is some beer, a couch, and a TV and a VCR, and he won't have to have anything else to do because he has all the entertainment he needs. And that was plaguing the generation then for being less productive. So with cybernetics making life even easier, and even now, like a previous examples with the cell phone and the clocks, we become more reliant on technologies, making our life even easier, why wouldn't people become dependent on cybernetics as well? Because the trend follows. So an interesting example is today we see that it would be just about impossible to function without a phone as an adult. It would be extremely hard to hold down a job and to even just function day to day because society relies so much on cell phones. And as we see in this picture, your phone in your pocket right now does all these things. You know, it has a camcorder, a boom box, a gaming device, a computer, VCR, DVD, Walkman, calculator, you know, like a ton of things this guy has. Headphone, you know, and you know, like an audio mixer, all these things your phone could do. And it's only been 20 years. So that comes into technology's adherence to Moore's law. Only the technology we have today is only going to get better. Like I said before, that Neuralink chip that looked like a big, huge like soda cap on the lady's head is going to become a millimeter thick chip in 30 years, maybe even sooner, just because how fast Moore's law works. And it's not all bad. Like I said, they're golden handcuffs, so they are nice. Neuralink will undoubtedly, hopefully, achieve the ambition of making people who are paraplegic walk again, and maybe even improve people's brains to the point where they're literally like a supercomputer walking around. So it's not all bad, but with combining with technology, there is a reliance. So just before I just ask you these questions, I just want to wrap it all together with a bow. With cybernetics, we're definitely going to see in the 3 sections, we're seeing that people become one with technology and what are the implications of how we view each other. I think that we're going to at first view each other as not human, and eventually it'll just be normal to have cybernetics. We also see something that's going to persist the entire time of cybernetics is the surveillance state, with corporations and governments working together to be surveillance on you, whether they like it or not. A government has power over any corporation. Then we see the addictive side of cybernetics and the reliance on technology today. So why would it be any different with cybernetics? So these are all things you have to worry about with cybernetics. It's not that hard to sell you on all positives. It's the blowback that is something that we have to really watch out for. So these are some questions I'd like you to ponder. At which point do people stop being human and completely become a machine? You could look back to the first slide. Would you consider that guy person? Is literally only his face is flesh, the rest of his body is all machine. If someone wants to get completely chrome limbs and robot eyes, are they really even human anymore? If they're like 99% robot, machine, cybernetic? So another question I'd like you to think about is, if you could get cybernetics, would you get them? You know, anything you want, a cool golden robot arm, or maybe a cool upgraded eye so you could see a mile away. Or would you never get cybernetics in the first place? And the last question I want you to think about is, do you consider chip implants like that of Neuralink to be cybernetics? What medical applications would you consider people with prosthetic legs and arms to have cybernetics already in a primitive way? And here are my sources. This is Neuralink's website, and that's it.